We're at a place where we've got as much technology in the palm of our hand as the early space shuttles. It's crazy how quick technology is growing. We were slow to get on this tech boom here in the Columbia Basin, but now it seems like we're catching up and actually, in many ways, boxing well above our weight class. None of this would have happened without the Columbia Basin Trust and their work to bring high-end fiber optic cable throughout the basin. It's been a game changer. The Trust helped us bring this region into this century, and at the same time, kind of gave us a really good idea for a podcast. We're going to get all technical on you, and you'd be surprised what enterprising high-tech people are doing in our own backyard. So settle in, put your space shuttle back in your pocket, and give this a listen. "25 years ago, I was backpacking around Africa. I drifted into Malawi, a stunning country with rolling green hills and welcoming people. One thing Malawi didn't have, though, was technology. Even televisions were rare back then. It was all part of the charm of the place. Malawi was remote, wild, and way off the beaten path, a place where time had a whole different meaning. One of my favorite travel writers is Paul Theroux. And while there, I read a piece of fiction he wrote set in Malawi called Jungle Lovers. The book enraged the leader of Malawi so much it's banned there. It even got Theroux kicked out of the Peace Corps, which made me love it even more. In the book, the main character comes across a clock tower in Blantyre, the country's second biggest city. The tower had 4 clocks at its peak, which displayed the time in 4 different directions. It was built by the British colonial government to bring Malawi into the modern world, a gift of technology neither asked for or wanted. Immediately after the British left Malawi in the mid-60s, the clock tower fell into disrepair. The 4 sides showed 4 completely different times. Malawi was largely rural back then, and people had their own rhythms and seasons to live by. A British clock meant nothing to them. So, no surprise they didn't bother to even set it. I was in Blantyre in the mid-90s, 2 decades after Theroux wrote Jungle Lovers, and I happened to come across the clock tower. Sure enough, it still showed 4 different times, 25 years later. You gotta laugh and quietly cheer the Malawians' refusal to buy into our Western way of life, one ruled by the hands of a clock. Technology would come to Malawi on their own time. Hi, I'm Mitchell Scott, and this is the Headwaters Podcast, brought to you by the Columbia Basin Trust and produced by Kootenays Mountain Culture Magazine. On this episode, we're going to look at technology and meet people in the Columbia Basin who are ahead of the technological curve. Not so long ago, we were much like Malawi, way behind, technologically speaking. Not really that concerned about it either. But we've caught up, and now are leaders in many ways. Over 15,000 people work in the technology sector in the Kootenays. It generates $2.5 billion in revenue every year. I should mention, Blantyre elected a new city government 5 years ago, and one of their first pieces of business was to order 31 new clock towers. The time had come there as well. We'll start with a story of where high-tech and our health meet. What's one thing we all have in common? We need food and liquids to survive. But have you ever stopped to examine what you take into your body on any given day? I mean, really examine it. An entrepreneur in Revelstoke did, and now he has followers who religiously track what they eat through technology. It's called the Chronometer, and it may just be one of the most comprehensive nutrition trackers on the planet. Sydney Black had an appetite to hear more and dug into that story for us. But before I begin with the question, Sydney, I need to know what's in your refrigerator.
Well, it's a little personal, Mitch.
I'm sorry, but, tell us what's in there.
Okay, it looks like we got some salad greens, some eggs from my aunt's farm in Harrop, some strawberries, I have some fresh herbs, some milk.
Okay, you can stop rubbing it in now. That's like the healthiest sounding fridge I've ever heard about.
What can I say, Mitch? You are what you eat, and we're a pretty healthy bunch over here.
So then why bother tallying up all the calories you consume with this chronometer app at all?
Well, other than the fact that you hired me to do this podcast.
Right.
Well, my dad in January had a heart attack, and there's a pretty long history of heart disease in my family. So I just wanted to, look into how I can make sure that that doesn't happen to me, and I can model good behaviors for my kids. And then also I'm a performer and a dancer. And so usually a couple times a year, we're doing 8 to 10 hours of dance rehearsals a week. And it just wasn't happening over the last 2 years. So I was looking to, re-engage with my body and feel more healthy and just kind of look at what I was eating.
So tell me about what you need to do. Like, how do you sign up for it? It's like a traditional app. You got to pay for it.
Totally. So it's a comprehensive nutrition tracking app. So you go in, you log into the site, and you keep a daily log of everything that you want to eat and also all of the physical activity that you do. And then Chronometer breaks it all down, and they get super detailed with it, and they tell you all about all of the ways that you can manage your nutrition. So it looks at your calorie intake, all of the sorts of nutrients that you're eating and taking into your body. So yeah, it was really, really interesting. And like you said before, nobody really tracks and knows what goes into their body. And I think that it's something that's super important to be aware of. So I wanted to take a hack at it.
When I did my little investigation, it looks like there's all kind of sites like this out there. So what makes the Chronometer so special?
So one major thing about Chronometer is that it's not like a Noom app where it's very diet focused and it's encouraging you to lose weight all the time. Chronometer isn't necessarily for that. So it breaks down everything that you ingest. It shows you your macronutrients, all your proteins, fats, and vitamins, and it gives you all that general information in kind of charts every day that you can check out. And then it's not just focused on weight loss. So it's used by pro athletes and people with medical conditions who want to track what they eat. And they actually say that it's the most comprehensive nutrition app anywhere. So there's more than 5 million people who agree. And the interest in Chronometer has really exploded. Now,
I know Revelstoke is going through a bit of a renaissance, but it's still a tiny little town in the middle of the mountains. So tell us about that.
Well, yeah, it's all based in Revelstoke. So Aaron Davidson is the founder, and he was working for a software company in Ireland. He was fascinated by the trendy, calorie-restricted, optimal nutrition diet, which is so-called cron diet that was all the rage about 15 years ago. So he found there wasn't really a way to accurately measure your calories and keep track of whether you were getting enough nutrition to be healthy. So because he was a little bit of a software geek, he designed his own program, and then he gave it to friends. And I'm going to let Aaron pick up the story.
There were some nerds like myself online trying to attempt this diet in humans, in themselves. It's very hard, though, to do it safely in a healthy way, and you need software really to do it safely. It's an extremely calorically restricted diet, so the danger is you can malnourish yourself quite easily, and that's going to be counterproductive to the goal. So software to meticulously track and design your meals such that you're hitting your low-calorie goals, but getting all the nutrition your body needs. So very nutrient-dense foods, obviously, like lots of vegetables and healthy fats and protein sources. And there wasn't really any good software at the time that I could find that I liked using. There was some software that worked, but it was extremely badly designed, not very user-friendly. So being a software engineer, I sat down on the weekend and banged out my own little app, pulled down some data sets from the U.S. government's USDA website that had nutrition data, built a nice slick UI on top of it, gave it away for free online, and kind of posted it to this users group online that was following this diet, maybe a couple hundred people.
Okay, so Aaron has his own personal dietary software and 200 followers, and he just keeps going on with his day job, but Chronometer keeps growing, to the point, Mitch, where he can't ignore it anymore.
What do you mean can't ignore? Like screaming kid can't ignore?
It just blew up out of nowhere.
It was getting busy, and I was between jobs. I'd moved back from working, high-tech job overseas, moved back to be a ski bum in Canmore at the time. And so between ski laps, I kind of decided to build a hobby business out of it, and I rebuilt it as a cloud-based, app-based business. It was really a hobby business, evenings and weekends kind of business, and eventually I moved on to some other startups full-time, but kept maintaining it, and it kept growing. It really did have this traction with a certain niche in the marketplace for diet trackers, where they're looking for something more than just a basic calorie counter, which is what all the big popular apps in the App Store do. We do a whole lot more, and really that's the key for our success. And eventually it grew too big for me to ignore, and I quit my day job and right around the time I moved here to Revelstoke, and kind of put down roots and opened an office and started hiring locals and growing the business. And today we're getting close to 35 people.
To be clear, that's 35 employees and 5 million plus users from all over the world. And they also make over $5 million a year in revenue.
It's insane.
It's wild. It's totally taken off. Aaron can't find staff fast enough. And now they're the biggest, or one of the biggest, software companies in the Columbia Basin. So it's all through pursuing something, which is amazing, that started as a hobby for him.
This is sounding like Silicon Valley to me. And I gotta think he must be facing some serious limitations with such fast growth here in the Kootenays.
Yeah, I was totally interested in the exact same question. So I called them, signed up, and Aaron and his crew put me on the gold plan.
Ooh, gold plan.
They're fancy. They were wonderful to work with, super helpful, and they walked me through the app, showed me all the kind of tips that I needed and tricks. I was wondering, wouldn't that have been easier to build all this in Vancouver?
Definitely is a slower pace in the Kootenays in terms of growing fast, but we're growing kind of at our own pace, a nice organic pace for the Kootenays. There's definitely talent to be found in the Kootenays, right? People with great educational backgrounds and work experience do decide for that life change in what we have to offer here. So they exist here, and businesses like ours can grow and support them to have their professional career as well as their lifestyle.
But it can be done, and a company can grow like your company has?
You can do it at a slower pace. You're definitely not going to be able to hire 200 people in a year if you're growing a company at that pace. I mean, Revelstoke in particular, they got high-speed fiber hooked up to the town quite early on. Obviously, access to great internet is really important. Definitely the shift to cloud-based tech hosting, like we don't have to have anything on premise, right? It's just staff here, but servers all run in the cloud. A nice office in a community that people want to live in that offers so much in terms of outdoor lifestyle and activities as well. Yeah, it's a great combo.
So nice to hear the Basin is a great choice for work-life balance. But we need to know, how did you do, Sydney, on the Chronometer?
You know what, Mitch? As I said off the top, we're generally healthy eaters, but it was really, really interesting for me to track the little things that I was taking into my body that were making the caloric difference between maintaining my weight and losing weight. So little things like how much salad dressing I put on a salad, or how much olive oil I roast my vegetables in. Just paying attention to those little things and then balancing it with activity. It really has made all the difference. So I've lost almost 7 pounds, about 1 pound a week since we started, and it's just making me way more aware of what I put into my body and making me feel way healthier.
So are you going to stay on the gold plan? Are you going to keep going with it?
Well, I'm super lucky because they gave me the gold plan for a year, so totally. I'm going to keep rolling with it for sure. And I'm also looking at my family and with their heart health, trying to get them engaged with paying more attention to what they put into their bodies as well. So I've got my dad all signed up for it, and I'm working on my aunt. And it's just going to be a whole movement towards my family having a healthier lifestyle.
Thanks for this amazing story, Sydney and Aaron. If you're out there, I could use a little gold plan action myself.
The Columbia Basin Trust has made it a priority to bring high-speed broadband to the entire basin. The Trust's broadband network is a linked series of fiber optic cable, each about the thickness of a human hair. This broadband network is above ground, on telephone poles, and even beneath lakes. It has linked communities in a way not thought possible just a few decades ago and helped fuel the basin's technology boom. The Columbia Basin Trust supports people and ideas in the Columbia Basin.
And now to a story about making old technology new again. A company in the West Kootenay is taking food vending machines into a whole new era. Smart One Technologies began in a tech club in Nelson. 5 years later, it's a thriving business helping reshape an industry that started over 100 years ago, the vending machine business. We sent out Graham Tracy to learn more.
Authorizing. Please select the product.
You know, Mitch, vending machines have changed. They're brighter, often bigger, and way smarter than the old pop and chip dispensers we plunked coins into.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh yeah, they talk now too. And if Brad Palman's Kootenay-based company keeps growing, we'll soon be talking back to them.
We're standing here in front of a traditional vending machine, or it looks like a traditional vending machine, and this technology really hasn't changed in the last 15 years. What we've done is applied ourselves a 4-foot touchscreen with embedded processor onto the front of that machine, replacing the glass window.
Before Brad demonstrates what they do at Smart One Technologies, we need a bit of history. Palman moved to the Columbia Basin about a decade ago. Just another tech geek looking for a lifestyle change. And how is a techie in a new city supposed to meet other techies?
When I moved to Nelson 10 years ago, I created the Nelson Tech Club. And every week, it just grew and grew, and soon we had 50 students or adults attending the classes every single week.
They came up with the idea of adapting vending machines, which still dispensed unhealthy food and used change almost no one carried around anymore. It was an old business model based around clunky old machines that needed an update.
We created a number of ways to control the vending machine. Typically, that's with a hardware controller, what we call Cerebrum. We're actually adding a brain inside of the vending machine that allows us to control the vending machine and communicate through the PC.
Palman and his company took vending machines to the next level, initially at the Fab Lab in Trail. They followed a Japanese model of installing software inside retrofitted machines and dispensing a wider variety of products, such as maps at visitors centers or school supplies at universities. They did pretty well for a few years, until the bottom fell out.
As COVID hit, we recognized that was going to be a very difficult path. The existing machines we had to pull in simply because there was no one using them. And during that time, we really looked at the public health space as probably the number one category that we could adopt and adapt our technology.
Now, Palman and Smart One Technologies have changed direction. Some of their machines still dispense food, but it's better for you. And they are moving into healthcare products for hospitals and clinics.
A lot of our new machines are going out for the public health sector, which includes a lot of harm reduction supplies, naloxone kits, self-testing, whether that's HIV or it's going to be for fentanyl or opioids. A large section of our customers are also fresh food vending customers. And previously, those weren't available via vending machines because it was very difficult to track expiry dates and quantities. So the refill schedule was very ad hoc. So that really old egg salad sandwich in the vending machine, nobody wants to buy. But if you're now looking for a vegan or a gluten-sensitive meal, you're able to now discern from what's inside the machine, see the material list, the ingredient list, and then make an informed decision. Hey, Greg, I haven't been feeling good, and I think I need a test today. Is there something you can offer me?
Well, the first step is to go through the questionnaire where it asks how you're feeling. and then that can give you an indication as to which test is most suitable. If you still have any questions, you can ask them directly to me.
Smart One is also perfecting a vending machine with a 4-foot interactive screen that could be linked to healthcare professionals or product specialists. Vending machines you can talk to.
I don't know of a vending machine where anybody is doing two-way video chat. The ability to remote dispense and all this real-time interaction, as far as we can tell, is a brand new technology, and we've really just started cracking the surface of it.
Smart One has a couple dozen machines in the market, and Pauman says they have many times that on order. He hopes to raise new capital and at least triple his 7-person staff in the next couple of years. Pauman doesn't see a problem finding skilled technology workers in the Columbia Basin. His tech group showed him the workforce is already there.
There's a really high density of technology workers in the region, and I think that's going to be one of the region's biggest draws, is that you can get your training, stay in the region, grow a successful company, and then invite the rest of the world to participate. So it's not just about putting in your dollar and getting your bag of chips, but now maybe it's answering surveys or a questionnaire, or connecting with a doctor or a brand that wants to get your attention, and being able to engage that customer and then provide the result at the end, which is the traditional vending experience.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we're going to end this with one of the pioneers of technology in the Columbia Basin, a particle physicist who's been plying his trade here for decades. Morgan Donnell started in his basement in Nelson and now has 24 really smart people working for him all over the world, many with PhDs. The head office of DPACE is in downtown Nelson, and they build the accelerator parts at Selkirk College. I can't quite believe they create particle accelerators at a community college. So I had to go have a look.
We just entered in through the bay door at the DPACE Ion Source Center. So what we have here are 3 solid target stations that are used for radioisotope production for medical radio tracers used in nuclear medicine, usually to spot cancer.
Okay, I gotta admit, I only understand about 10% of what Morgan Donnell says, and even less about what he does. But it's important, involves particle physics, and puts a lot of big brains to work in technology. Morgan began in his basement when there was barely internet in the Kootenays. That must have been a struggle.
In terms of some of the difficulties back then, you know, when we, say, did a drawing project and we're sending a model or a drawing package to a customer back then, you might remember it was dial-up still, so it could take a few hours to send by email a package to a customer of those drawings. And then you're shaking in your seat hoping there wasn't a glitch and you had to do it again. So that was difficult. And one other thing I remember back then is that it was sort of viewed as a lifestyle living here and kind of looked down a bit, not so much by the people here, but globally, business people and people we interact with. It was sort of like it wasn't right, whereas now it's much different. People are kind of thinking, hey, it's kind of a wise thing to live here. It's a little less costly and a beautiful environment and all that to live in. Young tech people generally want to go where there's mountain biking and skiing. So we have, to some extent, haven't had to look so hard for work. We're solicited all the time. Well, that's how many of the PhDs here is. This was Googling Nelson, physics or something, and then we come up, and then I've chat with them, and okay, well, yeah, you could do a PhD project with us. Go through UBC or somewhere and do something that's applicable to what we're doing, or we might hire them. A number of the engineers have hired that way, and it's been great to be here. It's beautiful to see these people here, and I think they quite enjoy, again, the lifestyle, but also the interesting work that's here.
That's another podcast. The Headwaters is brought to you by the Columbia Basin Trust and produced by Kootenay Mountain Culture Magazine. Bob Keating writes, produces, and edits each and every episode. Peter Moynes is our photo editor and executive producer. Tara Cunningham and Vince Hempsall are our story editors. Stacy Machowski does our design work, and our reporters this time were Sydney Black and Graham Tracy. If you want to find out more about everything to do with our podcast, head on over to our website, or you can go to ourtrust.org. I'm Mitchell Scott. Thanks for listening.